Hello everyone, we are the group 3 and now we will gonna talk and demonstrate about on how to assemble and disassemble computer parts. This demonstration is useful. Why? Because it help us to roll the people where in computer rules, and it gives us knowledge and background on how and what is the basis of a computer. Safety precautions. 1. Fully shut down and unplug the computer before you make any attempts to disassemble the tower. 2. Take off any metal objects on your arms or fingers such as bracelets, rings or watches. Even if your unit is unplugged, there may still be some remaining electric charge. 3. Make sure your hands are completely dry to avoid damaging any mechanical parts as well as to avoid electrocution. 4. Work in a cool area to avoid perspiration for the same reason as seen in the previous number. 5. Before touching any part within the tower, put your hands against another metal surface, such as the computer casing, to remove static charge, which may damage sensitive devices. 6. Prepare a place to keep any screws you may remove. A container or piece of paper with labels for each part, casing, motherboard, CD drive, etc., is ideal to avoid confusion between the similar-looking screws. 7. Handle all parts with care. Place each piece you remove carefully down onto a stable surface. 8. If a component does not come out easily, do not forcefully remove it. Instead, check that you are removing it correctly and that no wires or other parts are in the way. 9. Be careful when holding the motherboard, its underside actually quite pointy and able to hurt you. 10. Never attempt to remove the power source, a box attached to the side or bottom of the unit to which all cables are connected. 11. When removing any cables, wires or ribbons, make sure to grasp a wire at the base or head to keep it from breaking. 12. Be careful not to drop any small parts, particularly screws, into unreachable areas such as into the computer fan or disk drive. Have a safe experience in assembling your computer. Disassembling the computer system. 1. Disassembling the computer system. Detach the power cable. The disassembling of the computer system starts with externally connected device detachment. 2. Remove the cover. The standard way of removing tower cases used to be to undo the screws on the back of the case, slide the cover back about an inch and lift it off. The screwdrivers as per the type of screw are required to do the task. 3. Disconnect all internal cables such as SATA cables, ATX and etc. 4. Remove the adapter cards. Make sure if the card has any cables or wires that might be attached and decide if it would be easier to remove them before or after you remove the card. Remove the screw, if any, that holds the card in place. Grab the card by its edges, front and back, and gently rock it lengthwise to release it. 5. Remove the drives. Removing drives is easier. There can be possibly 3 types of drives present in your computer system: hard disk drive, CD, DVD, Blu-ray drive. Floppy disk drives, almost absolute nowadays. They usually have a power connector and a data cable attached from the device to a controller card or a connector on the motherboard. 6. Remove the memory module. Memory modules are mounted on the motherboard as the chips that can be damaged by manual force if applied improperly. Be careful and handle the chip only by the edges. 7. Unscrew the screws of the motherboard, then put it in a box container that can easily be found when it is needed. 8. Remove the motherboard. Before removing all the connectors from the motherboard, make sure you memorize the connectors for assembling the computer if required, as that may require connecting the connectors at its place. 9. Remove the power supply. The power supply is attached into tower cabinet at the top back end of the tower. Make sure the power connector is detached from the switchboard. Start removing the power connector connected to motherboard, including CPU fan power connector, cabinet fan, the front panel of cabinet power buttons and all the remaining drives if not detached yet. Now remove the screws of SMPS from the back of the cabinet, and the SMPS can be detached from the tower cabinet. Now remove the CPU fan from the motherboard. The heat sink will be visible now, which can be removed by pulling the tab upward. Finally, the processor is visible now, which can be removed by the plastic tab, which can be pulled back one stretching it sideways. The assembling of the computer system is exactly the opposite of disassembling operation. Before starting assembling the computer system, make sure you have the screws and a screwdriver for those. In assembling, this part is a little bit hassle, but please be patient in processing or assembling parts. Prepare the next parts to keep things fast and faster. But keep in mind that it is not necessary to become too fast, because that is why computer parts are destroyed immediately. Assembling the computer system. Now line up the power supply at the top back end of the cabinet and screw it. The power connectors for motherboard power supply and CPU fan power supply are to be connected. The first step for assembling the computer system starts with mounting the processor on the processor socket of the motherboard. To mount the processor, you don't need to apply any force. The special ZIF-0 insertion force sockets are usually used to prevent any damage to the processor pins. Once the processor is mounted, the heatsink will be attached on top of the processor. The CPU fan is also attached on top of the heatsink. Now the motherboard is to be fixed vertically in the tower case, and the screws are fixed from behind of the motherboard. Install the CD/DVD drives at the top front end of the cabinet and screw it. Install the hard disk drive and floppy disk drive below CD/DVD drive and screw it. Make sure once screwed there is no vibration in either of the CD, DVD, hard disk or floppy disk drives. It is time now to mount the memory modules on the motherboard by aligning the RAM to its socket on the motherboard and press it downward. Make sure the side tab are fixed into the RAM notch. If not, you may still have to press a bit. Install the internal cards to its socket and attach the cables or power cable to it. The selection of right socket or slot is required as per the type of socket. Now select the appropriate data cable and connect one end of the cable to its drive socket and another end at its appropriate connector on the motherboard. For SATA hard disk drive or CD, DVD drives use SATA cable and its power cable, else use iData cable. Do the proper jumper settings as per the usage requirement. Then install all internal cables and make sure that it is in the appropriate socket. Cover the tower by placing it and pressing towards front side and screw it. That's all for the assembling and disassembling computer system. Good luck and thanks for watching. We hope that you get a lesson from our tutorial. If you have a question about this, you may ask a question below comment box for some further explanations. See you again, viewers.